Dude, honestly, this is the first thing when I open up my feed, and this is the first thing I get on top of the board here. Bellular News says Bungie pulled the plug on Destiny 2. Now staff are leaking. Now my curiosity is, are we gonna get more information on this? Dude, that thumbnail. I ain't gonna lie, I love that thumbnail. That's a good thumbnail. My curiosity is, what other information do we have about the Destiny
In
2
2022,
failing?
PlayStation paid $3.6 billion for Bungie, and that was paid for on the strengths of Destiny 2 and the promises of the company's leadership.
I'm gonna be honest with you, they spend way too much, honestly. They got finessed so hard.
That leadership is now gone. Pete Parsons took his golden parachute, and now Destiny 2 is also gone. And with not even a month of notice, they've just pulled the plug. The live service is over, content is ending, and now they're getting ready for, quote, a new beginning for Bungie. But that announcement was only really the surface of this. Everything that's came out since is the real story, and overall, I think it's a lot worse than Bungie are saying. What we're absolutely seeing is the old world dying and the new world struggling to be born. Layoffs are already being floated. Bungie will absolutely not make it through this unscathed.
Yep.
And looking at the comparative performance of Bungie and Marathon, it's hard to see a way out. This story broke with a headline that, honestly, more than anything, would just piss off Destiny 2 players. They said, "Every end is a new beginning." That was the title of the blog post that revealed the end of support for D2. On the 9th of June, Bungie will release the game's final update called the Monument of Triumph, which is an odd name for this update given the last few years. And it is going to be the last one. People will get overhauled systems, the return of activities and events from the game's history, and some minor story beats to send off characters. Obviously, the deeper lore, the sense of the verse, and all of the things that people were excited about, lore-wise.
I'm like, they had more than Marathon at one point, or maybe a couple of times, to be honest, but yeah.
And what that could mean for new content, well, those do all appear to be dead currently. Now, Bungie have been clear, there are no plans to turn off the servers, and this entire process is basically them leaving D2 in a state where players can just dip in and out whenever they want. But what sets off alarm bells is that all of this is happening instead of the updates that Bungie had actually planned for the game. So here's the story in that. On the 18th of February...
I don't know why they continued after the final shape. They should have closed the game with the final shape and most people would be cool with it. Right now, it's ending with tons of loose ends. Well, what do you expect at the end of the day? I'm like, they got denied or so for funds for Destiny 3, but I'm like, Destiny has been like, let me see. So let's take a look at this real quick. So we go to SteamDB real quick. Destiny 2. So when did that second DLC came out? Is it right here? Oh yeah, this is that second DLC, right? The Final Shape DLC. I'm like, if you kind of look at it, right, it was already going downwards. Like, it was already, like, the trajectory of the game was going downwards to begin with. The only reason why it came back up here is probably because this was the announcement of the DLC coming in, so everyone came on board to grind, you know, to get their levels up for the raid and everything. And then this is probably right here, the day of the DLC. And then it just, you know, once they're done with their, you know, once they, like, literally, like, no life the game in general, it went it went downwards. Eso solo me hace recordar que fue el de ley, está para que no mueran los videos de juegos. Ahorita al momento acaba de anunciar del Destiny 2 que ya se van a, ya van a parar a, ¿cómo decir? Soportar. I don't know how you say it. Support. How do you say support? Apoyar. What the fuck? Que ya no van a dar más, como decir, DLC para el juego. Ya no, ya lo acaba de anunciar hoy o ayer, creo, de que ya se lo van a acabar. Y dice que van a mover todos los gente que están trabajando en del Destiny hasta el juego del Marathon. Pero ahorita el juego de Marathon, ahorita a este momento, mira, ahorita voy a enseñar los números ahorita para este juego. So este es el otro juego que ellos hicieron, as you guys can see. Ahorita puedes mirar que los números casi no están buenos al momento. Ahorita está muriendo este juego y casi puedes mirar la diferencia de este juego y también de este ahorita. Este cuando vino el, ¿cómo se llama? ¿Cómo se llama el DLC? Final Shape? Forma final? Oh, okay, all right, whatever. I don't know idea. I don't know if that's what it is, the right translation for it, but pero aquí es el punto que llegaron un montón de la más gentes cuando querían a jugar ese parte de la historia que acaba de anunciar. Y ahorita este momento, acaba de anunciar un nuevo, ¿cómo decir? Season. I say season. Okay, that's definitely not correct though. It probably is, but like I'm trying to use it in a different context. That's what I'm trying to. I don't know. I don't know if it'll translate very well as in the context of it. That's why. So ahorita así está temporada. Oh, okay. All right. As long as you guys understand what I'm saying or so, that's pretty much it. El último pico alto de jugadores. Ajá, ajá. Ahorita el momento de que ahorita están jugando como que 5,000 gentes. Ahorita están jugando. Los últimos 24 horas estaba 11,000. Pero si miramos aquí, estaban más gentes jugando en las últimas 24 horas que más de este. Y ahorita acaba de anunciar, ahorita, no anunciaron, pero están, ¿cómo decir? Rumors que están pasando de que van a, ¿cómo decir? Van a correr gentes que están trabajando en la compañía. So ahorita tiene como que 800 empleados ahorita en la compañía. No sé cuánto le van a dejar, de que van a parar allá a trabajar en el Bungie ahorita. So el momento ahorita está bien. Ahorita están en recortes de personal, despidos. Despidos. Yeah, there they go. Well, yeah, technically, but to be honest, they're actually getting fired. I'm gonna be honest with you. It's not really much layoff. It's more like they're actually getting fired, to be frankly honest. It's the more nicer word to say. It's like, oh, you're getting laid off. You're just like, no, you're actually getting fired. Okay. No, they're actually straight up just getting fired. I think layoff is just like the easier term to say, but like you know I'm like, who are we playing here? Yo creo porque como no dicen que se van a le van a correr a ellos piensan de que lo dicen otra palabra no es tan fuerte porque tú sabes que del lado de la west side de la sociedad, no, I don't know how to fucking say it, the society, how do you say society? Sociedad, la sociedad de la West es un poquito, ¿cómo decir? Tan soft. Bien soft, so así son ellos. So if Destiny was on the deathbed during the Edge of Fate, I'm like, technically they should have ended it on the final shape because I thought that was the ending.
February, the March major update for Destiny 2 was delayed. It was set to have a bunch of things, including a rewards pass, and that rewards pass stuff is now going to be included in the final patch. Now, there were major gameplay changes planned for later on in the year. These were things like restoring the director menu and replacing the hated portal menu. Those things are still happening. They're being rushed out early. And I've got to say, man, I can't believe that they did away with the director.
Yeah, but I think it's like an easier term to say layoff or so. I feel like layoff is like a blanket thing, so you don't get like sued or something like that, But like we all kind of know what it is. They're getting fired, okay? They're getting fired.
Just it was, and replaced it with a shitty, boring menu that looks and feels like any old video game.
What is
but
this?
Effectively, they're slamming.
Okay, I'm gonna be honest with you. I don't know why this UI trend. This needs to die. This needs to die. This needs to go away. I hate this Hulu UI shit. This shit needs to die. I hate this thing. Whoever decided this thing needs to get fired immediately. That's all I gotta say. I hate this UI. I despise this UI. I hate this thing, you know? That's all I gotta say about it. Like, I hate this thing. This shit needs to die. This needs to be vaulted, okay? Out of all the content that got vaulted, this needs to be vaulted.
Game. But effectively, they're slamming everything they can into this update. And that'll be that. There won't be seasonal events, there won't be rolling content. And that's because, likely, in a few months, many of the staff who built all this stuff,
UI.
well, it's looking like they won't work at Bungie anymore. In Bungie's goodbye, they did hint that the Destiny brand would live on, and loads of players took that as a tease for Destiny 3. It is not that.
It's not.
Sources speaking to Bloomberg report that there is no Destiny 3 in development right now, and Paul Tassi says that he can now confirm that. Paul has many links within Bungie, so I'm assuming he does know what he's talking about here. What we know is that staff are starting to pitch new projects, which does include Destiny ideas that aren't full sequels, but none of these things have been greenlit for production yet. And I know to many of you that's going to seem insane. Surely Destiny 3 is the obvious next thing to go and do. And hey, you can make a Destiny 3 that isn't hampered by some of the tech issues that Destiny 2 had. It makes sense. But why they're not doing it also makes sense, just not sense that's in our favor. Pitching and prototyping is something that requires far fewer staff than, of course, making a big MMO game and keeping up a consistent live service treadmill. And that does mean that a, quote, significant number of layoffs are coming at Bungie. They haven't announced that,
okay, I'm gonna take a guess. I'm gonna take a guess how many people are gonna get laid off, okay? I'm gonna take a guess right now. I'm gonna say 300. I'm gonna say 300 people are gonna get laid off. That's my estimated guess. That's what I'm gonna say. I'm gonna say 300. No, because there's only 800 developers in that studio right now. I'm gonna say 300. 300 people are gonna get laid off.
FBI, open up! That is what the reporting says, and I absolutely believe it. They're not coming immediately, but they are coming, and at a company town hall done after the announcement, leadership thoroughly dodged questions about the layoffs. Now, for staff, this is a brutal state of affairs. And remember that everyone currently at Bungie is a survivor of the last multiple rounds of layoffs, and they've done everything that they could to keep the game running, which obviously was not enough. I'm not going to sit here and say that Destiny was in a great state. It absolutely in no way was.
Yep.
But this is a team that had been damaged and damaged and damaged, that had people pulled off to like do some marathon stuff to get that game out the door. It has been a consistent rolling disaster.
It could be.
Now, what's interesting is the decision to kill Destiny 2 was apparently made earlier this year. But Paul Tassi actually reports that the vast majority of Bungie staff didn't know support was ending until the story went public. Now, of course, a few teams did. Some of those people were building the final June update. Some people had already moved over to Marathon, and basically, people who were in the know allegedly begged leadership to tell everyone else at the studio. Of course, that didn't happen, and there was secrecy at Bungie. And what's particularly rough is that this meant that people kept on building
They're no longer there.
Content.
It's not the same.
They were
like
making
I said,
things that leadership...
Like I said specifically, it's not the same team as the one that initially made D1 and the one that made I assume there's some of them that made the Halo, right? But I think once Destiny 2 came around, right? And then they sunsetted the content of the original, what is it, the Red Flag or the Red Born story, whatever the fuck it's called or so. There was a video that we saw of the reason why Bungie is not the same studio anymore. They changed their slogan on the door of their studio, and I was like, yeah, that's it. That's the end of Bungie right there. That is literally the end of Bungie. And also that bald guy said, don't like surpass expectation for players. Give them subpar expectation for your player base. You know, give them like bare minimum content instead of like over exceeding the content. Literally, there's a video on it that you can search it up or so of why Bungie is not the same. I have it up on my channel too as well if you want to take a look at it. It's also there. And it shows, you know, that they're just not the same. The under delivery killed him. Yes, the under delivery did. That's what the guy said. It's better to under deliver than over deliver. That's literally what that bald dude said. I don't know who that bald dude was, but like that's the guy that literally killed Bungie. I'm gonna be honest with you. So old Bungie versus new Bungie. Yeah, so it's not like, I assume like all the old people that were there originally are not probably there anymore, to be honest. Or at least a good majority of them probably left, you know? And now the new people are there and have to pick up the scraps basically, you know? But you know,
already decided to kill.
Sinako
These are
versus
things
bald
like
people.
Shattered Cycle, and that's because nobody told them to stop. So for players, it feels like everything they invested emotionally and financially is just being abandoned, and I think it's fair to say that the staff, that the devs, also feel a bit abandoned themselves. Now, in the wake of all of this, there have been a lot of questions leveled at Bungie. Why is this happening so suddenly? Why didn't it happen sooner, like say, after the final shape? Why aren't Bungie unvaulting all the paid campaign content that they locked away years ago? And perhaps the more grand question, what the hell were you thinking with the last while of Destiny content? How did you ever think this would keep the game in a fit, healthy state? Why were we doing a weird Star Wars expansion thing? Now, the answer to all of this stuff has just ended up being, well, kind of the same. That this all was never the plan, and that ultimately this is down to Bungie, a company that's experienced.
Let me see. So the Sony Group Core Bungie unit is planning a significant number of layoffs at the end of development of the long-running online shooter for Destiny 2. According to people familiar with the studio plans, the company doesn't have a new project lined up for Destiny 2's development team after the game comes to an end next month. According to people who asked to not be identified because they weren't authorized to speak to press, Bungie doesn't plan to immediately enter production of Destiny 3, they said. The number of jobs cut was not known.
Years of corporate chaos and malfeasant leadership, that it's basically just finally hit a wall. It's hit a reckoning. PlayStation can't keep on barreling money into the studio when it's not producing results. Now,
I think Sony needs to, at least Sony of America, you know, because when I'm talking about Sony, I'm talking about Sony of America mostly. They need to suck them in. They need to like just pull Bungie into their ecosystem and just have them be the leader of their shit, because apparently they can't seem to handle them on their own.
That said, there is one game that we know is not dead. With Destiny going away, all of the player frustration is going towards Marathon. Take a look at Steam right now, you'll see that Marathon is getting fully review bombed. People are furious that the resources that could have gone into Destiny 2 or 3 are instead going into Marathon. And look, from a certain point of view,
bought the game to leave a negative review, then refund it because Bungie deserved it. Peace out.
I think that is an understandable frustration. If I was looking at this purely as a player, that is totally how I would feel, right? Now, of course, if Marathon had been a mega success, maybe they would have been able to fund Bungie better. Maybe that would have taken the pressure off Destiny, and maybe then we'd be looking at a new Destiny project being built in parallel with perhaps a slow and more controlled winding down of Destiny 2 support. But obviously, that didn't happen. Marathon came out. For the people who like it, it's a great game, but it's not a mass market success. And while I think it's true that a successful Marathon could have saved Destiny 2, I think there is no doubt that moving...
Like everyone knew that this, like, it was like, the audience have already spoken, right? The audience have made up their mind that the game is like, not really my cup of tea, you know? Because at the end of the day, it's an extraction shooter, and usually extraction shooters are not really super mega popular. It's in their own niche category. Just like how other, like, what can I think of? I think like another one that I can think of, because I don't really... this is just my personal opinion. I don't think it's that popular, as in like mainstream side of things, is the boomer shooter. Like, I don't think boomer shooters is like that popular. It's pretty niche as well, right? So I'm like, I don't think you want to spend a shit ton of money on a game that's pretty much a niche audience, you know? And I've said this before too as well. What does your game different from all of the other extraction shooter games? What makes yours different? That's my question.
Piles and piles and piles of devs from D2 and on to Marathon, Well, it absolutely did damage.
Plus,
There's
also
no
at the same time, they did a lot of negative things at the beginning of the announcement of this game and going towards the beta of this game, compared to another extraction shooter that was coming out during that time specifically. We're doing a lot of good things. Tarkov is amazing, but the thing with Tarkov is that it is unique. And even then, they were competing on the same time frame with Arc Raiders, and Arc Raiders blew them out of the water.
question of that. But it is surface level. It is just the face of the decisions that got us here. And it's those decisions that you really need to understand, because they're basically why this shit has happened. So let me explain. Ever since the PlayStation acquisition, and probably ever since the separation from Activision in 2019, Bungie has been flailing about the place to try and find some sort of path forward. You see, back in 2019, Destiny 2 wasn't meeting financial expectations. And of course, it's a game that it came after Destiny 1 had kind of been delivered late, so there were lots of issues at the studio. And the funny thing is, it wasn't even supposed to be a live service. Yeah, it was supposed to be 4 separate releases. Each.
Wait. Bungie's and Activision's contract. So let's say, so May 21st of 2020, the judge of Los Angeles Superior ordered court Bungie's contract with Activision, previously sealed discovery of Activision West, blah, blah, blah. The full contract was published and entirely by the LA Times, provided the number of pieces of information that were previously unknown and are only speculated. Destiny is the operating title of Bungie's next project. The Destiny will consist of a series of 4 MMO-style sci-fi action shooter titles released every other year, beginning in fall of 2013. Expansion pack-style downloadable content DLC, codenamed Comet, will be released every other year, beginning in 2014. Destiny will feature a number of DLCs, microtransactions, and value-added paid services. Destiny is targeting a teen-rated ESRB in the United States and PEGI 16 rating in Europe. Activision was previously confirmed retains the exclusive rights to publish all Destiny titles. However, Bungie retains ownership of the Destiny intellectual property, regardless of its relationship with Activision. Bungie will receive $2.5 million per year from 2010 through 2013 to develop Destiny. Bungie will receive between 20 to 35% of the cumulative operating income of Destiny, depending on the total amount of income. Okay. Bungie is eligible for the number of performance and sales based on bonus, depending on the Destiny meeting certain development milestones and sale goals. Oh yeah, I do remember all of this, to be frankly honest. I do remember all of this.
So there were lots of issues at the studio. And the funny thing is, it wasn't even supposed to be a live service. Yeah, it was supposed to be 4 separate releases, each a game with an expansion pack every other year. That was their plan. Now, when PlayStation...
That's interesting. That's interesting to hear that.
PlayStation bought Bungie, they paid way over the odds because Destiny 2 had just delivered an absolute banger of an expansion. We've talked about that stuff recently, but what's happened to the money is what's actually more important for this story. You see, Bungie's leadership invested their money in any future except for one that had Destiny 2 being extremely important. They spun up several project incubations, including games like Marathon, and those were all designed to find other big hits. But the expectation was that Destiny 2 would continue to make money and continue to fund everything. Basically, milk the cash cow, take the milk, invest it into other things.
Interesting. That's interesting. Yeah, it's pretty obvious that Destiny 2 was their cash cow, and then use that money from Destiny 2 to fund the projects for the other games. So basically, what you're telling me is that Destiny 2 players funded Marathon.
That was kind of their plan. But the chaos of the layoffs, the cancelled incubation projects, and the leadership pivots around Marathon all reflect Bungie's failures. They never considered for a second that Destiny 2 could fail, or that they'd have to face the consequences of that.
I'm like, the thing is with Destiny 2, right? After a certain while with so many DLCs and expansion packs, right? The players are gonna leave, right? After a while, they're still getting burnt out and stuff like that. And new players coming in are gonna be a little bit too, like, overstimulated by the amount of content there is. So you want to start like basically fresh, ground zero. So then all the new players that want to come in and try it out can come in and play it, while the returning ones can also come in as well at the same time with them and start at ground zero. And it's all fresh new content, and then everyone can play forward with their DLCs and whatnot.
Put simply, Bungie, as an organization, took Destiny 2's success and, therefore, its players for granted. Now, why wouldn't they invest in, say, rebuilding the vaulted content? Well, there's an obvious answer, because that would reflect less profit and it would risk impacting the live game. And then there's the obvious question, why wasn't there an incubation project for Destiny 3? That would have made sense given...
Igual, no se me hace tan raro que es muy común sobre todo en la animación. Común. No sé cuál es esa palabra. Espérate. Dame un momento, Esta es una palabra que no sé yo. Well, es que, ¿cómo decir? La cosa es de que ellos estaban, cuando estaban en el contrato con ¿cómo decir? La compañía de Activision que hizo los juegos de Call of Duty, querían hacer, no querían un juego cuando estaban en contrato con ellos, querían 4 diferentes juegos con separadas cosas, pero el problema es solo hicieron solo un juego, que es Destiny 2. Y de que y ellos querían original, ellos solo querían 4. Y vinieron Sony y lo compraron ellos. Lo compraron ellos por $3.2 billones. Porque la cosa es, ¿por qué lo compraron? Porque dijeron que ellos sacaron un buen DLC y ellos gastaron ese dinero a ellos porque ellos piensan que van a hacer un montón de dinero, pero de verdad casi no, porque se estaba cayendo los gentes que estaban jugando, the player base, se estaban para abajo, van a seguir, they were going downwards, okay? Sorry, like I said, Spanish is like, has now become my second language now, since like I don't use it that much, I use it, but I don't use it like to the extent of like certain words. La cosa es de que eso pasó, ¿verdad? Entonces, el Sony compraron ellos, pero el Sony no pensaba que el Bungie que van a ir la graph, basically, que va a ir para abajo. Y de entonces, ahorita están en, how do you say hot water in Spanish? Agua caliente, ahorita están en agua caliente ahorita al momento, porque el Sony dijeron que ellos, primero el Bungie dijeron al Sony que, hey, queremos hacer el Destiny 3, queremos hacer el nuevo juego, pero el problema es, el Sony dijeron, a la madre, no te vamos a darte dinero. No te vamos a darte dinero ahorita para hacer Destiny 3 porque tú acabas de chingar a los otros con el pisto que los otros lo dimos a ti. So ahorita ellos están en problemas. El Destiny 2 ya se está muriéndose. El Marathon casi no está haciendo bueno tampoco. Y van a dejar gente que están trabajando en la compañía de ellos. Y ahorita se están metiendo en problemas. Y quién sabe qué va a pasar con el estudio, porque ahorita no sabemos qué va a pasar con el estudio. No sé si Sony lo van a venir a ellos y van a traerlo con la, how do you say absorb? Absorbar? Is that how you say it? Absorb, I don't know, whatever. Que lo van a absorbar al how do you say ecosystem? Ecosystem? Ecosistema. En la ecosistema de Sony, para que ellos son los jefes de ese estudio, porque ahorita al momento, porque el último jefe que estaba ahí lo dejó un desmadre al estudio, porque él compró carros de clásico y todo, y no estaba una buena persona de que, ¿cómo decir? How do you say fucking, Jesus Christ? They just couldn't lead them properly, okay? Sorry. It's just, the problem is, it's like, it's fucking annoying as shit to, right now, to undo certain words. Let me see here. Ahorita sí, como ahorita acaba de pasar esto ayer o unos pocos horas, algo así más o menos. Ahorita está complicado, ahorita como casi no sabemos todas las cosas ahorita. I bet Marathon is getting free to play in a month. You know what they're doing? ¿Tú sabes qué está pasando con el Marathon? They're making a PvE. There's rumors that they're adding a PvE to Marathon. Eso es que está pasando. Están haciendo un PvE. So, eso es que están haciendo ahorita. Y ahorita ya se está. I don't know, dude. I don't know what's gonna happen with Marathon, to be honest. I'm just much as clueless as much as the next person, but like rumor has it that they're adding a PvE. Dubstep told me that like apparently rumors are passing around for a PvE part of the game. And it's just kind of like, ooh, wow. This is where we're going with the title, huh?
The final shape? And the answer is because it would not be the old leadership's problem whenever they would leave a few years later. That really is the thing. All they had to do was keep profits consistently out of the red to earn their huge payouts. And those
So former Bungie devs show fury and sorrow over layoffs following the revelation of CEO Pete Parson allegedly spent at least $2.4 million on vintage cars in the past 2 years. Yeah, this is the thing. This is the thing that we were talking about a while back or so, that the dude was spending money on cars. Allegedly.
Payouts truly were huge. As Bungie's ex-senior narrative designer Robert Brooks put it, quote, "It turns out the real Destiny killer was Pete Parsons." And the thing is, he's not alone. Paul Tassi, who has covered Destiny for over a decade, pointed to the same thing. The old leaders practically fleeced Sony with the overvalued sale of Bungie and then basically bailed themselves out. Now, you still might be wondering, well, why the hell is this?
So you're saying basically that the old CEOs were basically the one that conned Sony. They finessed Sony, basically.
What's happening now? Well, because the new leadership are taking stock of the chaos that they've been left with, and they're just trying to work out what their best options are and what the hell they're going to do with this bag that they're now left holding. And unfortunately, right now, they think their best option is probably putting everything into Marathon, but not for the reasons you may think.
Huh?
In April 2026, about a month after Marathon launched, Paul Tassi reported that Marathon had overtaken Destiny 2 for the number of Bungie developers working on it. Here's the quote. Of the 800 or so remaining Bungie employees, it's now more evenly split, with Marathon now edging out Destiny 2 by a bit. Now, this doesn't really track with analysts.
Wait. So 400, right? It's split evenly. 400 to 400. 400 developers on Marathon, 400 developers on Destiny. And then now they have some of those developers from Destiny over to Bungie. I think it might be 300 developers that might get laid off or so from Destiny side. I think it might be somewhere around there.
Suggestions that Destiny 2 is actually outperforming Marathon on consoles financially, so we're still left asking, why the hell wouldn't they keep Destiny running? You can just take a look at the Steam charts, and when you do, you can see that Destiny is beating Marathon on PC, even though we have many reports suggesting that, well, Destiny is still fairly big and healthy over on consoles, whereas Marathon kinda collapsed in consoles but did better in PC. So for Destiny to be beating Marathon on its Steam numbers really does look quite bad. So what's the answer to all of this? Well, it's pretty simple. Pulling out of a decline is really hard, especially a decline that is built on 12 years of technical debt and logistical decisions. Bloomberg sources suggest that leadership had considered, quote, ways to retool Destiny 2 to make it more approachable for new players, but that eventually they just decided to cut their losses. Now let's take a look at the shape of Destiny 2. It's obviously a game in decline. And that's a wild thing to say, because it hit lifetime peaks just 2 years ago, at the climax of the final shape, but what followed that was massively slimmed down plans that just went really badly. It was effectively a bad plan executed worse. What they decided to go for was 2 small expansions and 2 major updates, but well, that couldn't even fill a single year, and 2 years of changes to monetization and the expansion production model has not helped the team turn the game around. I mean, how many times has it felt like Bungie have tried to communicate, "We've learned our lessons about Destiny 2, we're turning over a new leaf. This is a reset in how we run the game." It's happened a few times. And what we've effectively learned is that there was no clear plan to build on what was there that wouldn't have been incredibly costly. So in that context...
Wasn't there... I'm like bringing up an old information or so. Wasn't there like information or rumors or something like that that the coding was a little bit messed up or so in Destiny 2? Or like it's old or so? And they couldn't really like kind of like change like the thing or so for new players to come in and everything like that. I think Dubstep knows a little bit more. I'm not too sure. Like, I don't know what you guys think. There's like I know there was like some kind of rumor or somebody said it, like some news or so, like the coding was a little bit off or so for this game. And that's why they couldn't really like retune it or so in order for it to cater to like new player, make it easier for like new players to come into the game. I know it was something like that.
Loading staff onto the Marathon lifeboat almost seems like a protective move. That's especially considering that PlayStation cannot afford to have Marathon die. And step back from this for just a second. As Paul Tassi puts it, Sony are dangerously close to being not for two. Let me explain. They bought a company that they thought would keep on printing money with Destiny 2, and that would have a big new hit in the form of Marathon. All while having their live service...
You thought Marathon was going to be a big hit? Jeez, man, I don't know what Sony is smoking, but man, dude. You listen to your main customers, is that pros, casuals, none of the above, a mix? Do the research. The engine is old, plus remember the problem of making your own engine. When you fire people, you are most likely firing the people that know the engine inside out, and most of the time they don't pass down that knowledge. Okay, all right. So basically, well, it's still technically the coding. So the coding is old, right? And some of the new developers don't understand that specific coding, and they probably, you know, to a degree, right? To a degree where the old developers knew exactly how it worked and everything like that. So oof, yikes. Okay, I see.
Expertise help everything else Sony was doing. All of those things have failed. And most obvious of them, Destiny 2 has been lobotomized within just a few years of that
Destiny
deal
2
closing.
got killed
And now Marathon is Bungie's only active game, and that means that all the studio's revenue is going to ride on that one game. And I'd say any chances of revenue from Fair Games, from Tokon, from Horizon Hunters Gathering, or any future online game kind of depends on whether Marathon stays alive. Because PlayStation can't really abandon Marathon, because if they do, I don't think anyone will buy one of their live services again. That's one way in which Marathon being a paid product could actually bite them. And it's why Marathon Season 2 announcement was about doubling down on the game and expanding it. They're fixing up onboarding, they're giving people options for PvE and direct PvP, and generally they're just reducing friction. Those are all changes that can't be made in a Destiny 2-like game, because Destiny 2, from everything that we understand, is basically held together with bits of sticky tape, hopes, prayers, and maybe the blood of some of its developers. Marathon, for all its problems, is at the very least a newer code base, and certainly it's a code base that's early.
There it is. There's a conversation about the newer code base. Okay. There it is. This is the topic that I was talking about. Thank you for the follow as well. Welcome.
In its overall life as compared to Destiny. So if you're going to be working on something, you can see how Destiny 2 would have a very high tax on any, I guess, salary that you pump into developing it, because it seems that Destiny 2's dev environment is a little bit shit. Perhaps that's not the case with Marathon, and that's why they think that even though Marathon is a game with serious headwinds and trouble, that it's probably still the better place to do some sort of bet. Personally, I'm not sure they can pull it off, but I see a little bit of a pathway. Because their real
How's
trick
your night
could
going?
be,
I don't know.
well,
How is your
the
night going?
mode that's coming in the latter half of
It's
the
not
new
my night,
season
so it's
for
not nighttime here,
Marathon,
so.
because it actually sounds a lot like Destiny 2's open world areas. Basically, players take on missions and they roam about the place completing objectives with multiple different zones to play through. There's a world where that makes a lot of sense, and where a Destiny player could really enjoy that because it wouldn't really feel like the Marathon that they didn't end up liking.
Always void
But let's
time.
be real. Destiny 2 players are not going to feel positive about Marathon because it looks like the game that kind of killed the one that they love. But regardless of that, Marathon is the plan. And when you think about it, Destiny 2, even now, 12 years later, has industry-leading shooter gameplay and design. So giving players a similar enough option in Marathon without any of Destiny's drawbacks from a dev perspective may have been what they saw as a real opportunity for Marathon to actually make Bungie fans happy. I mean, come on, it's Marathon. It's that thing we played on the Xbox Live Arcade whenever Halo was a thing and they did the re-release of Marathon. But that doesn't really hit true, does it?
No.
Because the problem is that Marathon is not Destiny.
No.
And it never will be Destiny.
Nope.
And now, nothing will be Destiny.
If they try to convert Marathon to a Destiny-like game or so with that PvE, oh man, that's all I gotta say. Oh man.
This, I think, is an inflection point for the industry because it really is hard to overstate the impact Destiny has had in the games industry. It codified the looter shooter, at least in one of its major forms. It became one of the very few successful Western FPS MMOs.
True.
It inspired an endless line of competitors as, of course, every other publisher wanted what Bungie had. Of course, far more often than not, that trend chasing failed.
Yep.
Trend chasing sometimes does work, but it often doesn't. You can just look at the long queue of WoW killers that, in fact, well, did end up dying. And it seems to me there's an obvious reason why. Games like WoW and Destiny captured their likely player base, right? It's probably the case that there just wasn't much more room in the market for more and more games like that. Because for most people, Destiny was the narrative and gameplay experience that they wanted, that they loved, that captured hearts and minds. Which is, of course, why we're seeing anger and heartbreak now. And while most of the competitors failed, there is one that did really well. It's Warframe. That's a game that is as strong as it's ever been.
Oh yeah, Warframe.
And it's now going to, I'd say, thrive even better
strong.
in the space that Destiny 2 is leaving behind. Now, what we're left with is Bungie, a company that will limp on and that may someday return to Destiny. But it does so having been forced to give up one of the biggest games.
I'd say I say this anyways in quote unquote. If Bungie survives, if Bungie survives, okay, if they actually do survive, I'd say within 5 years, we can probably get a Destiny 3. I'd say within 5 years, like once after the 5-year mark disappears, I think we'll probably get an announcement for one. But for the meantime, I think it's good just to let it rest for a while, you know?
In the world. All because a handful of executives took it for granted, could not plan ahead, and ultimately, in how they structured the company, did all that they could
$3.2 billion?
Acquirable at a goddamn high valuation, one far higher than the company could support. It is no surprise that when CEO Pete Parsons left in his golden parachute, getting himself his massive payout, that PlayStation didn't replace him as CEO. Bungie doesn't have its own CEO. That's pretty much.
Wait, what? Wait, can you repeat that again?
His massive payout, that PlayStation didn't replace him as CEO. Bungie doesn't have its own CEO. That's pretty much because PlayStation have had to come in and work out what the fuck they're going to do with the shell of Bungie that is left, and that is a shell that itself is but a shade of the former Bungie, with the former Bungie being the one that they bought at a massively inflated value.
Okay, so you're telling me when they got rid of the CEO, when they bought out the CEO specifically, they basically did not replace the CEO whatsoever? That's crazy. You would have expected them, to have a replacement at least, as soon as possible when they did this whole entire thing. How do you not have somebody for that? Eh, La cosa es que de que cuando compraron la compañía, Sony no tenían, ¿cómo decir?, a reemplazar el jefe del negocio. So, y tampoco la compañía, el Bungie, no tenía nadie que puedan a meterse para ser jefe. Ahorita al momento, quién sabe qué van a hacer con la compañía, porque ahorita ya casi no están los viejos gentes que están ahí que trabajaban el primero juego, del Destiny 1. Ya casi todos los viejos developers ya no están ahí, ya casi ya no están ahí, ya no. Y hasta así, quién sabe ahorita. Quién sabe qué van a hacer. Ahorita vamos a hacer un coffin para ellos. We're gonna make a coffin for them, okay? Jesus Christ.
PlayStation, this could not look worse, especially because we all kind of knew that Bungie's expertise was supposed to be the fulcrum of their live service strategy. A strategy that is looking more doomed than ever. But that's not the only doomed thing. Who is a little bit doomed is Changham Kim. He's the CEO of Krafton. He asked ChatGPT to get him out of a really big payout. But now that Subnautica 2 has launched, he is going to have to pay a huge payout. And as you'll find out in this video next, it could actually be even worse.
Oh, really? That's funny. Just got a lot worse. That seems like a pretty good video to take a look at tomorrow. Anyways, damn, dude. Okay, all right. So yeah, we know a bunch of, like, we knew a little bit about the situation itself, but yeah, overall, it's still kind of crazy though to see this, and the fall. The fall of it is the fall of it is definitely going to be wild. Nos mataron a todos. Ay, ay, ay. Oh my god, dude, that's crazy. La chistosa cosa de que del Activision, aquí enseñaron la contrato del Activision con Bungie. Activision dijeron al Bungie que queremos 4 juegos separados, pero no hizo 4 juegos de separados, solo hizo uno, y es Destiny 2. It's kind of crazy though. It is kind of wild to kind of see that, or so that like, man, so this is basically like what's been happening behind the scenes to some degree, and that like Activision wanted them to make 4 games, not 1. So okay, so my question is, do you think they canceled them during that time or so because they left Activision because they wanted the 4 games, because Activision was like asking them to make 4 games in total? And then once they separated, you think that's the reason why they separated? That they separated from Activision, because there's no way there'd be no way for them to make four games. I'd be curious if that's also part of that, because I'm trying to piece everything from all the information we know, because we all know that that Bungie was making multiple games, right? They were making other games in general. These other projects were canned. Activision wanted 4 games in the contract. And that's my curiosity, if that's the reason why Bungie left Activision. And then Sony bought them up because of that. Maybe. I wonder if they knew about that to some degree, or like some rumor or something to them that'd be like, oh, they're working on like, these other games or so. But I assume they didn't announce the cancellation of those projects yet during that time. And then like the success of the DLC for whatever specific DLC it was, because I forgot when they bought when did they bought Bungie. Let me see. When did Sony bought Bungie? When did they buy Bungie? It was in July 15th of 2022. Okay, I see. Okay, so let me see. In Destiny 2 during July 15th of 2022. During that time, Destiny 2 was in the middle of the Season of the Haunted, which had launched in May 2022. Next major content drop of the year was the Season of Plunder, which arrived in August 23rd, 2020. Okay, I see. Got it. Okay. Okay, I see. Interesting. But yeah, anyways, that's the end of the video. You guys can comment, like, subscribe, do all that fancy jazzy stuff. Bungie died in Destiny 2 like Halo and Reach. It's still kind of crazy though. People are memeing, literally straight up people are memeing about Destiny 2 dying, and then, like, you know, normal people who had a consciousness who completely understood, like, oh yeah, it's not looking very good for Bungie. We already kind of knew. We already saw the writing on the wall. We knew exactly what was really happening with Bungie in general, and it was just going downhill completely, you know. So there's a lot of I can't wait for more information to come out behind the scenes when it comes to, like, the developers, like, kind of like spilling the tea. But we're probably gonna have to wait, like, at least like a couple days or a couple weeks or so until we get that information. So anyways, that's the end of the video, and peace.